Coming up on Global Business, currency crisis. The Japanese yen weakened to the critical 160 per dollar mark this morning, and the central bank stands ready to intervene. Green action on World Environment Day. We look at China's latest efforts to step up ecological protection measures. And food alarm. The World Food Programme warns that rising Mideast tensions are posing a growing threat to global food security. Hello, welcome to this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Zhen Junfeng. General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee and Chinese President Xi Jinping has held talks with General Secretary of the Lao People's Revolutionary Party Central Committee and Lao President Tonglong Sisulis in Beijing on Friday. Tonglong is on a 5-day state visit to China.
Before the meeting, Xi held a welcome ceremony for Tonglun. A 21-gun salute was fired. The national anthems of both countries were played. President Xi and Tonglun inspected the People's Liberation Army Guards of Honour. The two leaders then watched the formations of the PLA Guards of Honour. During their meeting, Xi said China regards Laos as a priority in its neighbourhood diplomacy and firmly supports the country's development path. He said China is ready to build on the traditional friendship between the two countries, deepen practical cooperation, strengthen coordination and advance the all-weather China-Laos community with a shared future. Xi outlined 4 priorities for future cooperation: closer strategic communication, deeper exchanges on governance, and stronger law enforcement and security cooperation to combat cross-border crime. Second, he urged both sides to deepen mutually beneficial cooperation by aligning development strategies, advancing development along the China-Laos Railway, upgrading the China-Laos Economic Corridor, and accelerating rail connectivity between China, Laos and Thailand. He also urged expanded cooperation in agriculture, energy, artificial intelligence and the digital economy. Third, Xi stressed the importance of people-to-people exchanges. Marking the year of China-Laos friendship, he called for greater cooperation in culture, education, healthcare and local-level exchanges, along with more talent training programs and community-focused projects. Fourth, he called for closer coordination on regional and international affairs. Xi praised Laos for adhering to the One China principle, supporting the global development, global security and global civilization initiatives, participating in Belt and Road cooperation and backing China's core interests. Tonglun said he had witnessed China's impressive development achievements during his visit. Describing bilateral ties as the strongest in history, he reaffirmed Laos's commitment to the One China principle and support for China's major global initiatives. He said Laos is ready to strengthen high-level political mutual trust with China, deepen cooperation in defence and law enforcement, and jointly combat online gambling and telecom fraud. He said the country also seeks to expand cooperation, including security, trade, investment, clean energy, the digital economy, modern agriculture and environmental protection. He also pledged closer people-to-people exchanges and joint efforts to advance the Laos-China community with a shared future. Following the talks, the two sides witnessed the signing of cooperation agreements covering party-to-party exchanges, public welfare, finance, customs, trade, youth exchanges and media cooperation. Xi Jinping and Peng Liyuan later hosted a welcome banquet for Tonglun and his wife at the Great Hall of the People.
China's State Council, at a meeting chaired by Premier Li Qiang, approved a key employment plan for the 15th five-year period, along with a draft regulation aimed at boosting veterans' employment and entrepreneurship. The cabinet also called for guiding more foreign investment into advanced manufacturing and productive services. Officials stressed the need to accelerate breakthroughs in core technologies while fostering more startups and unicorn companies in future industries. To achieve high quality and full employment, the government will expand vocational training and enhance support for key groups. Fourth straight week of decline, hovering near the key 160 per dollar level for a third consecutive session. As of 12:45 GMT, the yen has nearly fought at 160.04 against the US dollar. The 160 level is widely seen as Tokyo's trigger for intervention. Despite a record 11.7 trillion yen market operation last month, the currency has erased all those gains pressured by surging energy prices stemming from the Mideast conflict. At the same time, a wide interest rate gap between the United States continued to drive selling. Finance Minister Satsuki Katayama wants that authorities stand ready to act decisively against excessive volatility of the yen. For more insights into the Japanese yen's weak performance, I want to bring our guest Chu Qiang, fellow of the Belt and Road Research Center at Ming's University of China. Mr. Chu, Japan has spent some $73 billion intervening in the foreign exchange market, yet the yen continues to weaken. 160 is a warning sign. Does this reflect systemic pressure from the dollar-centered international monetary system on yen or other Asian currencies?
Well, I'm going to tell you that this is actually very serious. Look, one of the most advanced major economy in the whole world with a huge foreign reserve, and they've been spending more than 74 billion the US dollar intervene for a whole month, which is like 3%. They dropped 3% of the total foreign reserve, and nothing happened. You know, the exchange rate stayed at 160 yen towards $1. This is the worst moment for Japanese financial system right now, because I think there are many reasons behind that. I think number one, there's a bomb. One is, I think, the inflation is coming back, especially in America, which is high inflation. So expectations for the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rate is basically gone, and the interest rate is probably going to go up. So this kind of the high and a wide interest rate spread is actually killing the expectations for the stability of the Central Bank of Japan and also the Japanese currency. And secondly, I think the second bomb is the oil prices. There's also a war waged by America against Iran, actually making the oil market at very high position. So people will have a very strong expectation for the global economy to go bad and also US dollar to go even stronger. So I think when these two bombs have been linking to each other, the problem occurred not only for Japan. I mean, you just mentioned about Korean won, about Indonesian, India, Pakistan currency. Every Asian, currencies are under very, very huge pressures. But I think the one core reason behind that is the hegemony of the U.S. military forces and also the hegemony of the U.S. dollar. So this kind of the U.S. dollar dominated world currency system is actually choking the world economy and also killing Asian currencies.
Now, faced with similar external shocks, the Chinese RMB has remained relatively stable thanks to its independent monetary policy and promotion of local currency settlement. To reduce over-reliance on a single currency, what kind of regional cooperation could be explored?
Well, I think the financial independence and also very strong and resilient economic network, I think it's a key. Very lucky for us to stay very strong. Actually, renminbi is the only Asian currency which has been appreciating against the U.S. dollar. So I think we're very, very lucky. But Japan, I cannot say that for them because their foreign trade has been weakening, plus their financial system has been crippled by U.S. dollar. So I think if we want to make our currency and the network of the payment in Asia stronger and more resilient, I think number one is we really need to build this safety network to introducing in our local currency settlement. For example, instead of just using U.S. dollar, we should allow that Japanese yen, Korean won, Indian rupee, and Chinese yuan, and all that to pay for our own, together and bilateral and multilateral trade. And also, I think it's very necessary to build this called the bilateral, currency swap network. For example, Chinese Central Bank has already been signed up with more than 32 counterparts. So, which means actually we can use renminbi and our partners' currency, do trade and also, do the financial settlement. So I think with this settlement sizes and trade settlement sizes is going up, I think our trade network and financial stability can be maintained. And also, I think within our CEP, we can introduce in more of this kind of multilateral and bilateral financial exchange program between our two countries and more countries to use our own currency, so that we can really, try to lower this kind of the pressure from U.S. dollar.
Right. There's some mechanism we can try. Given the limited effectiveness of Japan's intervention so far, the pressure on many Asian currencies from the US dollar, what role can China play in strengthening regional financial safety nets?
Well, of course, I think renminbi actually has already become one of the stable anchor for the value of the local currencies. So, well, just take a look at Korea. South Korea's currency has been weakening, but I think their rate of the dropping is actually much, much more slower than Japan, and also they're following a really stable and a smooth curve. So what does that even mean? That means that Koreans' foreign trade and the financial system is stable because Korea have a very close tie with the Chinese currency, and many of our bilateral trade are actually been settled by renminbi. So I think that is on one hand that the Korean central bank are trying to anchor their won against the Chinese yuan. So I think this kind of the double anchoring actually are helping this currency get stable. So I think the similar mechanism can actually happen between Chinese yuan and many trade partners. For example, Japan, for example, Singapore, Thailand, and many other countries. And also, I think in the China plus 3 or China plus ASEAN countries, this kind of the mechanism, we can introduce in the Chiang Mai initiative, which means actually we can agree to use renminbi as a fast financing tool. So when a lot of countries, for example, when the US dollar get very strong and running out of your country and leaching out your liquidity, you can use renminbi financing to supplement more of the liquidities. So we can stabilize your financial network with an extra liquidity from the Central Bank of China. And also, I just mentioned about the bilateral, currency trade and the swap network. And also, we're talking about the multi-digital currency bridge, which is the M bridge. So we can bypass the SWIFT system and lower our dependence on the US dollar and the US dollar system so that we can bypass a lot of the risks. So you see, we're going to face a lot of pressure for sure, and it's not going to be a quick solution in there. But if we try and we believe in ourselves, we will find a better way in the future.
Good point. Thank you so much. That's Mr. Chu Chang, Fellow of Belt and Road Research Center at Mingzu University of China. June 5th is the World Environment Day. To mark the occasion, the United Nations Environment Programme has renewed its call for global climate action. At a UN event in Beijing ahead of World Environment Day, participants highlighted China's role in tackling climate change and its efforts to mobilize public participation to address climate and environmental issues. Cities across China are hosting activities on World Environment Day to promote environmental awareness and encourage greener lifestyles. China's national event is jointly hosted by Guangzhou by the Ministry of Ecology and Environment, the Office of National Steering Committee for Ethical and Cultural Progress, and the government of Guangdong Province and Hong Kong and Macau Special Administrative Regions. China's protected areas reform is drawing global attention. The World Bank recently convened representatives from over 30 countries to exchange ideas on improving conservation effectiveness. To learn how the China World Bank Global Center for Ecosystem and Transition can share China's ecological development experiences with other developing nations, our correspondent Aaron News spoke with Andrew Rodriguez de Aquino, lead environmental specialist at the World Bank.
We brought together with the government of China a delegation of almost 30 countries to learn and exchange with China on progress to effectively manage protected and conservation areas. And effectively here means both ecological, increasing biodiversity, vegetation, water quality, but also and fundamentally economically and socially. So increasing jobs, increasing incomes, improving skills of people that live around protected areas.
Following this Chengdu seminar and field visit to the Giant Panda National Park, how do you assess China's progress in boosting green jobs and improving community livelihoods through protected areas?
And one of the reasons we chose Sichuan is exactly because of the results that the Panda National Park have shown in terms of increasing income of local people, of employing people in park-related activities. So we assess the progress as commendable and significant because it has allowed for the increase of jobs by improving the infrastructure of the parks, and by so doing, increasing the offer of tourism activities for people, which in turn leads to more jobs. But also improving the skills of people living around the protected areas. We had the chance to interact with some of these people that were working in different types of business, sometimes extractivist industries such as mining, and have been able to move to jobs such as tourism, hospitality. This progress in promoting economic development through nature-compatible activities is really something that all the countries around here are very interested in learning.
What governance experiences from China in balancing wildlife conservation with local communities' sustainable livelihoods can be replicated?
China has been undergoing a reform of the protected area system, as you all know, and there's a lot of elements that are replicable. One of the key ones is bringing multiple fragmented protected areas managed through different arrangements with different visions into a coherent long-term vision, which in China is what the national parks became. So this center of a common vision. So this is something that our participants have taken notice and think can be replicable. Something else, and this was new to most people coming, is the co-management with different institutions, including community organizations.
You're watching Global Business, more to come. Food alarm. The World Food Programme warns that rising Mideast tensions are posing a growing threat to global food security.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business. Only on CGTN.
Let's move on to some other business headlines we're tracking at this hour. China and the European Union have held high-level trade talks with Chinese Vice Minister of Commerce and International Trade Representative Li Chenggang and EU Trade Chief Marlos Sefcovic discussing WTO reform and bilateral trade ties. Thailand's consumer price index rose 2.79% year-on-year last month, lower than 2.89% seen in April. The May reading marked the second consecutive month of inflation growth. And in Japan, household spending edged down 0.5% year-on-year in April 2026, easing from a 2.9% decline in the previous months. So the reading is also the mildest contract in 5 months. The ongoing conflict in the Mideast may have even more severe long-term consequences, according to the United Nations World Food Programme during a press briefing. Carl Scow, the agency's newly appointed acting executive director, warned that record-high levels of hunger could worsen further.
The long-term implications might be even more severe. You have heard reports, not least from FAO, speaking about the impact of lack of fertilizer. There is now the planting season in most of Eastern Africa. Rainy season is on its way. We are really worried that productivity will go down. Record high levels of hunger that is now risking to get even higher.
US tech giant Microsoft has launched a new PC designed for running AI agents, along with several agent models at its annual developer conference, Build 2026. Mark New has more.
At Microsoft Build in the San Francisco Bay Area, Microsoft unveiled technology that has resulted from its collaboration with AI chip powerhouse NVIDIA. It introduced the Surface RTX Spark Dev Box, a PC for developers that is fine-tuned for running AI agents. CEO Satya Nadella compared it to having an entire data center on your desktop. Nadella actually introduced NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang live via video call to explain the concept.
The idea that I could be traveling and I'm on the phone and I could text my PC and ask my PC to get some coding done or some idea that I have, and it would fire up the tools on the PC and it would make the modifications or the changes or the design. And so this idea that the PC evolved from a personal computer to a personal AI, it's just really exciting.
Microsoft also highlighted how their agentic AI can be useful on wearable devices. As part of its Project Solara, it showed off a prototype of the Qualcomm Intelligent Badge, an ID badge that can record audio and video and utilize an onboard AI agent to potentially help for authentication, finding records, documentation, or drawing insights. Microsoft also introduced 7 new AI models that improve everything from images to voice generation to accurate transcription in 43 languages. With all these tech advances, the pressure is now on Microsoft's chief rival, Apple. Apple, which has largely been seen as falling behind on artificial intelligence, has its own annual developer conference next week. Mark New, CGTN, Silicon Valley.
Elon Musk's aerospace company SpaceX is planning to go public at the Nasdaq on June 12th. Its SEC findings show SpaceX could be the biggest IPO ever, with a fixed price of $135 per share. That will also put the company's valuation at $1.77 trillion, making it the 7th biggest company in the country. Tony Waterman has more.
This is on track to be the largest IPO in history. It will eclipse Saudi Aramco's $1.7 trillion valuation when it listed back in 2019. And what is unusual about SpaceX's IPO is that it's reportedly reserving 30% of shares for retail investors, which is roughly 3 times the Wall Street average. So this is injecting a lot of energy into this IPO. And that excitement is coming because this money, in part, will be used to fund other ambitions for the company, things like launching data centers into space or sending humans to Mars for the very first time. But despite this excitement, there are a number of concerns here. The staggeringly high valuation is roughly 94 times SpaceX's sales, which is extraordinarily high, much higher than we see for other listed companies here in the United States. So this is going to expose investors to a lot of potential losses if SpaceX fails to generate enough revenue. And the company has been losing a lot of money, $5 billion last year, $2.5 billion in the first quarter of this year. Most of this being dragged down by xAI, which is the AI segment that Musk rolled into SpaceX. And it's been losing billions of dollars a year. Ultimately, though, this could end up being the main driver of revenue. Goldman Sachs put out a forecast that SpaceX's AI revenue will grow 100 times by 2030, potentially boosting the valuation to $3.5 trillion. Another concern is that the listing could siphon money away from other big tech companies or other big upcoming listings like AI giants Anthropic and OpenAI. Both of them are expected to list later this year. There are also concerns about the company's governance structure. So Elon Musk is going to have more than 82% of the voting power, which basically means that whatever he says is going to go. And there's little room, if any, for those retail investors to sue or to have a lot of influence over corporate decision making. And finally, this listing is also going to make Elon Musk, who is already the richest person in the world, even richer. And there's a good chance that he may become the world's first trillionaire. And that would give him even more power and influence that he's been wielding lately in American politics.
In an earlier interview with CGTN, market analyst Fiona Sincota of London said the tech stock heat is unlikely to trigger another dot-com bubble. However, she did note risks tied to SpaceX's massive IPO.
So basically, ordinary investors will be with Class A ordinary shares, but Elon Musk will control shares which actually have significantly greater voting rights. So after the IPO, he's actually expected to retain around 80% of the voting power, which is extremely high. I mean, on one hand, this does give him the sort of the ability to focus on innovation without sort of being too distracted by, quarterly market pressures. But on the other hand, it does raise some concerns over sort of shareholder democracy. At the end of the day, investors will be providing capital, but actually have very little influence over decision making. But essentially, this is sort of a decision over whether you're going to be able to, or whether you want to buy into Elon Musk's vision, because that's very much what you would be doing whilst you're also buying into SpaceX. I mean, the timing is really important here. Obviously, the timing has become around as well because we're seeing this sort of real ramping up of AI enthusiasm. Chip stocks are rallying. We've got, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, Dow Jones, all at record highs. The timing is very important here. But I think there is a concern, given the size of these IPOs, the amount of liquidity that they could potentially be drawing away from the market could be quite concerning, and especially because they could be happening in quite quick succession. But I don't actually think this is a repeat of the dot-com bubble, which, there have been many sort of similarities drawn to, but I think there is a key difference. I mean, prices are frothy. The market does feel a bit frothy. But as I said, I don't think we're quite at dot-com bubble era. And I think one of the key differences here is today's leaders, particularly those in sort of the AI and semiconductor companies, they do actually generate substantial revenue and in many cases profits as well.
We'll see what happens on June 12th. That's next Friday. With that information, we'll wrap up this edition of Global Business. Thanks for watching. I'm Judging from Beijing. CGTN will continue with more news.